Kate Bargo,
Here.
Dan Delahunt,
Here.
John Fike,
Here.
Blake Harris,
Here.
Greg Peugeot, William Siemens.
Here.
We have a quorum. Okay, let's see where my agenda went. There it is. Okay, we had the minutes from the May 15th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to read them? I had one item to change. On the first item, I had to abstain from the mural, and that wasn't noted as such, so I've alerted Quinn already, but just want to make, for the record, that it's for there. So we need a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll make
So
that
moved.
motion.
We have a
Blake's got
motion
it.
and a
Second.
second. Any questions on the motion? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. This is an adjudication hearing, so you in the audience as well as the staff, if you're going to give any testimony, you need to be sworn in. So if you'd raise your right hand, if you're going to testify, repeat after me. I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
You are sworn in. Procedure is, we will call an item, staff gives a report. We'll ask anybody who wants to speak in favor. If you wish to speak, you need to come to the microphone, give us your name, your address, and then your testimony. And then we will go do the reverse, anybody who wishes to speak against any of the requests. But it's important for her to get your name and address that you speak so that we can hear you. The first item on the agenda is 5206 Barrett Road, an application submitted by Brian Brown for property he owns at 5206 Barrett Road for a variance to zoning code section 1145.17 to allow the construction of a fence at a height of 6 feet in the side yard, whereas the same section requires a maximum height of 4 feet. We have the staff's report. Is there anything additional you wish to add?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see this property is zoned R175, single-family residential. And on the right-hand side, that is where it's situated, which is near the intersection of Venice Road, Barrett Road, and McCartney Road. On this street view photo on the left-hand side, the main fencing section in question, which is existing, unfortunately, our code does not have a provision allowing us to do one-for-one replacement without a variance unless it's exactly, well, one-for-one. But the material is changing here, and on the right-hand side is the other section that was in question. And that's, you can see from the top-down view, the sections of the fence are highlighted in red. As a reminder, the orange property lines underneath can be off by up to approximately 5 feet. It is just an estimation tool provided by the county, and it's very useful one at that. But that being said, if it looks a little off, that's simply because the aerial image was used and cross-referenced with our measurements using said tool compared to following the property lines. So section highlighted in red is the one in question, which because it falls within the side yard. Staff analysis, proposed fence height variance would provide a relief of 2 feet from the 4-foot requirement. The fence would be aligned with the existing character of the area, and it appears to be justified given the irregular configuration of the neighbor's yard compared to the applicant's yard, and all other zoning code requirements would be met by this fence. And that second point, you can see if we look at the PowerPoint again here, the area that is in question overlaps to the immediate east or southeast, that neighboring yard, that is directly their backyard. You don't see that too often. Usually in plats and in modern days, you know, you see backyards butting up against each other. So staff recommends approval with the following condition. All applicable permits are obtained through the building department, engineering department, and any other applicable agency prior to construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this request? Please come to the podium.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Brown. I'm the owner of the property. I actually had my property surveyed So would you like to take a,
It was provided to us.
you do
Can
have it?
provide them a copy?
Yeah, no,
The permit?
the applicant did provide us a copy that was used to redraw it on the auditor's map.
We don't need to see it, we believe you.
Okay, excellent. So right now, yeah, it's a unique situation because my front yard is my neighbor's backyard. Okay, and we just would like to extend my existing fence along the property line. I have my exact property line. I mean, I paid out of pocket for it, and that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this request? Please come to the microphone.
My name is Dave Coy, and I live right across the street from Brian. And I'll tell you, I have no qualms with him doing anything over there. He's done all the work him and his wife has done since they've been there has been nothing but beautifying our neighborhood. That's the way I look at it. And all the things he does, to me, it's just going to improve my chances of selling someday if I ever sold my house, because it wouldn't bother me a bit to let him put that fence up.
Great, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in favor of this request? You don't have to. Is there anyone who would speak?
I exactly what he says, so.
Okay, is there anyone who wishes to speak against this request? Hearing none, if we come back to the board for any questions? If there's no questions, a motion is in order.
Make a motion to approve this request for variance with all applicable permits being obtained.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions on the motion? If none, please call the roll.
William Siemens,
Yes.
Blake Harris,
Yes.
John Fike,
Yes,
Dan Delahunt.
Yes.
variance is approved. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to where I need to be.
I will email you tomorrow. Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Property at 513 Cedar Point Road. Application was submitted by Mary, is it ready? For property she owns at 513 Cedar Point Road for a variance to not construct a fence around proposed pool at the height of at least 4 feet as required by section 1145.17 G6, but rather utilize an alternative safety barrier. We have the staff's comments. Is there anything further you wish to add?
Just a few things, Mr. Chairman. This property is also zoned R175, single-family residential. It is situated toward the southern half of Cedar Point Road. Here's a couple street photos I took the other week to just give us an idea of the existing character of this property relative to the neighboring ones. As you can see, the houses are further set back, which is definitely not unusual whatsoever on this neighborhood, so it's in line as is with the character. I took this picture to illustrate that there is no fencing at all, which is, of course, what triggered the need for this variance to begin with. If an applicant applying to construct a pool, let's say, has an existing 6-yard backyard privacy fence, that 6-foot fence would qualify or would, as meeting the 4-foot minimum fencing requirement for a pool. And speaking of the pool, we can see it in the dead middle of this site plan. It's proposed to be well within the required setbacks, and that 8 feet is from the existing patio that is open, so it's even further from the structure, which we measure from the walls, and it has to be at least 10. So in terms of setbacks, this is good, but onto the cover, I've taken some pictures from the application that was submitted. What I was given was some justification in the form of manufacturer's guidelines, kind of a promotional packet about the safety of these kinds of covers. When the applicant first reached out to me, that was, of course, my main question, which is, well, the standard does, of course, exist for a reason. We should discuss why this could be okay. So there's an independent society similar to Underwriters Laboratory, under which this cover is also listed, but it's called the ASTM. according to that, the pool cover safety specifications is tested for 4 main categories. So on the left of this slide, I'll go top left to bottom right. Weight support, the cover must be able to hold a minimum weight of 485 pounds, which is the approximate average weight of 2 adults and 1 child. The source reports. Second, perimeter deflection test. All openings must be strong enough to prevent a test object from passing through. Third is the surface drainage test, which prevents a dangerous amount of water collecting on top of the cover. And for control switch requirements, any device used to control the automatic pool cover has to be permanently mounted in full view of the entire pool. Reading myself into what I was given as part of the application, that can include either a lock and key method for the pool cover control vault or a passcode, either one. Staff analysis, the proposed pool cover would be aligned with the existing character of the neighborhood. It's important to note that many of the properties on Cedar Point Road abut the Sandusky Bay and thus possess a higher level of assumed risk than non-waterfront properties to begin with. From the chief building official, the pool cover reports compliance with ASTM F 1346-91, which is a list of standard requirements for safety covers, including performance tests and labeling requirements to minimize the risk of drowning by inhibiting the access of children under 5 years of age to the water. All other zoning code requirements would be met. The only other thing I'll add, Mr. Chairman, is that the building official did note that this used to be a permitted exception codified within the building code. Within the most recent updates of labeled the year 2024, they were removed, but the standards still, the ASTM standards, I don't believe have changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone in the audience who would speak in favor of this request? If you want to leave, you won't hurt our feelings. You're welcome to stay though.
Okay.
Could have said something sooner.
I'm hungry.
Step out.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I forgot to read our recommendation into the record. All right, real quick. Therefore, because of everything I've stated, staff does recommend approval with the following conditions. 1, all applicable permits are obtained through the building department, engineering department, and any other applicable agency prior to construction. And 2, the pool has either the lock and key or passcode method of accessing the controls to the cover for extra safety. Okay, now thank you.
Please.
Hi, I'm Mary Ray. I signed in as Tricia because I go by my middle name. So I'll fix that. So thank you for the consideration. As Adam said, there's an exception within what the building permit issues us with the instructions for the pool permit with an ASTM F 1346. And I think in your packets was the sticker with the ASTM number on it. I did that right?
Yeah, it was page 1 of the supplemental packet.
And then I don't have a lot to say other than what Adam already said, but it is a unique property, and all the houses on that strip are unique. And what attracted us to the property was access to the water, not realizing it wasn't really swimmable. So this is really just for, to have a pool. I don't really have a hardship that I can give you because a pool is a luxury. But I would hate to obstruct the views, which is why we bought the property. I'm not, if we do have to put a fence up, we of course will. But I was researching the glass fences, and to have a 4-foot wall of glass I would not feel comfortable. So putting up a proper fence that I'm comfortable with would obstruct our neighbors' views on both sides of the sunrises and the sunsets. And if I were them, I would be a little bit upset because that's why they bought the land. When you have a home that's the lake in the front and the bay in the back, safety's already sort of everywhere around you, which is why I think the cover would be even better than the fence, because the cover you can walk on. It holds up to 485 pounds, where if it's just a fence on a property that we are not at most of the time because we only spend a few weekends here in the summer. And kids can figure out how to open gates and how to peel off covers. So this cover, it would be so secure that I would feel more comfortable. I can't fence in or cover the lake or the bay, but I can at least protect the pool. And that is it. Oh, I did ask our insurance company if a fence would, not having a fence would be a problem versus the cover, sent them the brochures and all the literature, and they don't have a problem with a cover in lieu of a fence. And that's it.
I don't see anybody else out there, so questions from the board?
So I think I have one. So with the passcode, just curious, could it work like it does, even with verbal access? I mean, can it be controlled remotely, like from your phone? Do they have that technology with this pool cover as far as the passcode?
I don't.
Just curious.
I don't think so. I believe
Okay.
it's a keypad
Ah,
and then
okay.
a key. So you have to, so my understanding, at least so far, is you have to use the key to unlock the keypad and then put in a code.
Okay, all right, great.
Is your pool installed?
No,
Not yet.
no.
Okay.
Well, I didn't want to, so the way that it's laid out on the property now is the design is without the fence, but if we have to put up a fence, then sort of the organic shape of everything has to change to square. Because, a fence would look silly going around this big organic shape of stamped concrete. So we're waiting to install it until we know that if we have to or not have to put up a fence.
Okay, my concerns, and I design buildings, and the pools that we've done all come with fences. The Ohio Department of Health has no exceptions for anything but a 4-foot fence. And so our building code just follows what the Ohio Department of Health is, who handles all public pools.
Right.
And typically, that's what we do. Pools that are near areas that have a view that they don't want to obstruct, we put in 4-foot high glass fences. So the fact that you don't have a hardship, I have a hard problem with supporting anything but a fence.
Right. The bay is sort of a natural barrier already. And there is no public access from the bay to our property because it's all private. And I totally understand, and I wouldn't want to, I don't know the difference between a variance versus a special permit, because I wouldn't want to say, okay, I'm going to set a precedent that there's no pool, because that would be ridiculous, because most pools it would be appropriate to have a fence. It's just a unique property being surrounded by water.
So, go ahead.
It was in our code before, and it was taken out, or just not taken out, but.
It
not-
was,
again?
yeah, it was in the building code, which the handout that you're reading, Mary, is unfortunately outdated. But that's what I discovered in talking to our chief.
According to-
It was a legal exception,
And it
like,
was an exception to the state of Ohio's rule?
I'm assuming the building code is like our code in that it defers to whatever the stricter provision is, but I don't know that for a fact. That's not my code of expertise.
Question, but John, you were citing those were public pools, right? The Ohio law is public
Well,
or not? Just curious.
the building code is two pieces. There's the Ohio Building Code and the Residential Code of Ohio. The Ohio Building Code covers all public pools. Residential Code of Ohio would cover a private pool. And in the Residential Code of Ohio, it does require a 4-foot fence.
Okay.
We, as a zoning rules, can't, in other words, we can't say, hey, you don't have to follow the residential code here. We are giving a variance to the zoning code if we approve this. We're not giving a variance to the building code. So if the building code requires it, you have no choice, it has to be there.
In the document provided by the city, 3109.4 has an exception, and the exception is a swimming pool with a power safety cover or spa with a safety cover comply with ASTM F1346 need not comply with this section. And that's city code.
Okay, but the Ohio, Residential Code of Ohio is not the city code. They're different.
Right. Because the
city
the state
adopts the
allows
Residential Code of
cities
Ohio.
to do their own thing.
To add on top of it if they deem fit. Yeah.
So we don't have any idea why that aspect of the code was eliminated or changed?
When I talked to the chief building official, he didn't seem alarmed by this, but he wanted to make sure I had my citations right. He noted that the ASTM standard that's been mentioned, obviously it used to be a codified exception. Neither of us knew or discussed why it may have been removed. But he did comment and say that this list of safety specifications seemed thorough. So,
Mr. Chairman, my issue with it right now is in that part of the neighborhood, you're wide open in the back. And I get that it's a very safe feature if it's being used. I'm concerned about somebody leaving it open at night or even in the middle of the afternoon and everybody's in having dinner and somebody sneaks off, but, so I'm kind of ambivalent at this point.
But you also have a whole bay that isn't tarped or fenced.
Well, you do, but you have to walk through 20 feet of mud to get to the water.
No,
There.
not in our property. I don't know if you went out there to see it, but there's access to Lake Erie and there's access to the bay.
Yeah.
There's no mud, everything has been either concreted or decked.
In the back.
Well, and I think the difference is, it's your pool. If something happens, you're responsible for that pool. Several of us grew up over there, and you weren't responsible. The bay and the lake, we can't control what happens out there. I think the concern is, what Dan's saying, is that it's a concern that if something does happen, if it's open, having a fence around it is a deterrent to go into it, even when you're maybe in eating dinner. At least there's something keeping it locked up for a minute. I don't know.
I'd like to ask the law director
Right.
what our liability is here
Are you referring to the city's liability?
and this board's liability.
I don't see any city liability here. It's not our pool. But there's a possibility of the owner having liability if it qualifies as an attractive nuisance, which pools generally do.
So we're legal, the building code is still an issue here too?
This is a variance.
In other words,
They're asking
if
for a
we-
variance to the zoning code.
If we give that variance, do they have another stop to make?
They still need a building permit, and the Ohio Residential Code requires a 4-foot fence, and there are no exceptions anymore.
So you think they're gonna get shut down at the building permit anyway, or they should? I'm just wondering what other municipalities
I
do.
can't answer for what, if the plans
Sure.
examiner
Right.
catches it.
Right.
Then, which he should, but if he doesn't, then, that's not up to us.
Can I ask a question? So I picked this up just a couple months ago from here,
yes.
and it had that there was an exception, but that's not current.
That's what I was told, is that it was recently removed as an exception. I will admit I was relying on that interpretation at face value. So the digging that I did do, including, I assumed it was in the Residential Code of Ohio because it is a residential pool. What I was advised was that all swimming pools are regulated through the Ohio Building Code, the commercial side, whether it's for residential or not. I don't know for a fact, again, it's not my code, but I was fully assuming that all of the very valid points being debated were taken into consideration because the building official and I did walk through this one pretty thoroughly.
May I add, I'm going to take my best stab at this. Although I hear you, Mr. Fike, what you say about, the Ohio building code. But then there's, what she mentioned about the insurance company. And obviously, I think we would all agree that the insurance company is obviously going to do their due diligence and have their own things set in place to make sure their behinds are covered. And I will also say that although fences are indeed a deterrent, sort of to what the applicant had alluded to, she's not always going to be here and/or spends very little time here, as it's just seasonal. So I will say that, I guess I say all that to say this, a 4-foot fence, while it's a deterrent, it's not a major one. My cousin, I won't say any names, but I mean, she climbed over the Chesapeake fence quite often to swim, and it eventually led to her breaking her ankle one night. Anyhow, so I think in some ways, or maybe even in many ways, one could argue that this pool cover, especially considering the background that you've done on it, I would almost maybe lean towards that this is maybe a safer option and a greater deterrent from anyone being able to access this, because if someone were to jump a fence, there's nothing stopping them after that. So unless it's got barbed wire at the top of it, I mean, they're getting through. This seems a little bit more, I guess, foolproof and dare I say, even safer. So I personally, I think I'll certainly be, voting in favor of this.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, the other point that Mr. Harris made is the fact that you're not here most of the time, so you could have the 4-foot fence and no cover on it anyway, and I guess you've checked with your insurance
It could be the neighborhood pool.
company. It could be the neighborhood pool.
It present a challenge to teenagers who want to jump a fence.
Right.
And I think, honestly, a fence is a false sense of safety, as far as I'm concerned. Having little people, and constantly being aware of the bay and being aware of the lake. Adult supervision is the only foolproof, and that's what we do. This is really more for, not to allow me to walk away from the pool uncovered, because I would be there, but it's more for when we're not there.
Does that stay covered out? Does that cover stay in it in the winter, or do you drain halfway down?
No.
So it's on all winter, nobody's gonna snowmobile through your backyard and end up in the pool or anything?
I hope they better not. Well, there are
Oh, they
a lot of, there's a lot of boulders in the landscaping, so it'd be pretty hard to be one of those properties that are, because we're not, the pictures look wide open because you took good angles, but there's really a lot of obstacles. But
Might
natural
want to place a few more
obstacles.
obstacles.
Yeah.
It's just my opinion, and I'm just one of 4 here, but I would feel, for me to support this, I would need to know exactly what the building code requirements are. Just because we as a zoning approve it, and there's a building code requirement saying it can't be approved, I think it's a sticky wicket for me to say, yeah, let's just go ahead and see if they get caught by the building department. I mean, I would prefer, if anything, we would table it for a month, get an answer, and then come back and either approve it or disapprove based on what exactly the wording of the Ohio Residential Code says.
Can I show you the documents that I have from the city?
We
Where'd they
believe
come
you.
from? Are they from the residential code or from zoning code?
From the
Resident,
lobby.
yeah. It lists the Ohio Building Code section.
Just so you know the perspective that we're coming from.
It might help.
Yeah, take a
Sure,
look at
let's take
it.
a look.
So this is a handout that is currently in the lobby.
It's currently in the lobby where the asterisk is. And then this is just my copy of the packet that has the ASTM.
Okay, I don't know what these the 39-100, is that from,
My understanding is that it's from the building, or OBC, Ohio Building Code.
I only know what, my dealings, they're not on the private, they're in from the public. And the public requires a 4-foot fence, there's no question about it, so.
Except for the exception noted there, and this meets that requirement for the exception.
I know that what I just recently did the requirements for another pool, which is a public pool, and there are no exceptions. There is a 4-foot fence requirement.
Sure. I'm not trying to argue, I'm just pointing out what I got from the city has an
And
exception.
that's why I'm not in favor of this, or I'm in favor of tabling it for 1 month and then getting specifically what is in effect right now. 'Cause I'm not in favor of approving something that the building code says is contrary.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you, so I'd like to make a motion that we table it till the next meeting and have the planning and law director look at the regulations a little bit more closely and bring it back to the board.
I unfortunately don't have that luxury of timing, so we'll just have to redesign. It's already been redesigned in case this happened. So we'll just have to resubmit the application, which
Good.
I'd suggest updating what the rules are that you give people when we do the permit.
I mean, I just don't
Well,
see where we would
those aren't from
approve
the
a
building
variance if the
department.
building department's not gonna do anything
is.
with it anyway.
It's from the building division of the city of
Okay,
Sandusky.
it's just, it's out there, it's not, you didn't go to the building department and say, hey, I want to get a permit for my pool.
We did, and we submitted the permit already. The pool installer already submitted it. And then we got a call saying, where are the fence plans? And I said, well, we're going to use the cover instead, and then you have to go from the BZA to do that. But we didn't realize we had to, but now we do. But because there was an exception in the instructions for the permit is what we were basing our plans on. So,
Well, I'm not clear on it, and that's why I would either vote against it or I'm in favor of tabling it.
So the building department actually didn't say that you were approved or give you any approval, they just said you had to go to the BZA. To us.
right, for
I did.
for no fence, but yet at the same time, the instructions were, if you use this type of cover that meets this ASTM number, then there's an exception.
According to the building department or according to that?
According
Can you look that
to
up?
the building division of the city of Sandusky is what this document is.
It is located in the building division lobby within their office suite. Yeah. That handout.
Adam, are you saying, though, that language has changed now?
That
from
is
there?
what I am saying, yes.
It's not in there anymore, so
That's
this is
what
an
I was
old
told.
packet? How did our
I
poor
believe it's still
resident
out
end up
there.
with this?
I'm not sure if another packet is being drafted or has been updated. Again, I did not re-verify information that was given to me because it's not my code to administer. So, but, yeah.
The law director, the building department trumps us, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, they will obviously make sure that the building code is followed. While we were talking, I was just doing some basic research on my phone, and there is a difference between the Ohio Residential Building Code for pools and public pools, private pools and public pools, but that's all I knew right now. I haven't been able to find the detailed regulations for private pools.
Mr. Chairman, what was also explained to me that is current was for a completely different property, but also a pool. A resident wanted to save money on some fencing, and because of the topography of their property, it's sloped downward the further back into the rear yard you went. And so the front of the pool was secured against the house, but there was an exception listed in what the law director stated, that area of the building code for if the pool wall itself is greater than 48 inches, then that can also constitute as an alternative safety barrier. So I don't believe this, its former inclusion was a one-off. I'm not the expert on this in the city, but yeah, further context.
So, Mr. Chairman, yeah, we can certainly do research on this.
Well, the motion, we have a motion at the table.
I guess I'll amend my motion and withdraw it, and if you want us to vote on it, it sounds like you'd rather have an up or down tonight, then I'll make a motion that we accept it, the variance with all the exceptions that the city's laid out, and see how the vote comes.
Yeah, and I'd go ahead and second that.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second.
Would you like to include the pool has the lock and key or passcode?
Yeah, it's-
The controls as was presented.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve with staff's recommendation, which is applicable from the department, engineering department, and any other applicable agency, and the pool has a lock and key passcode method for assessing the cover. Is that correct?
Yes.
yes.
Okay. If there's no other questions, if you'd call the roll?
Blake Harris,
Yes.
John Fike,
No.
sorry. William Siemens,
Yes.
Dan Delahunt.
Yes.
The variance as stated is approved.
We'll email you tomorrow morning.
And see what happens with building.
We'll make sure they're alerted.
Right.
Coming in the station.
I think we're turning into pumpkins.
Not an item on the agenda. Dr. Siemens had a question for staff on a project that is presently being demolished.
I want to
Well,
cover it again.
the primary house
Yeah.
has been taken down on Columbus Avenue, and the accessory building behind is still intact, and I just want to know how that's considered, if that's still considered an accessory building, or is that now considering the primary residence?
Which block?
Was it 1600? It's on the
It's
east side of
probably
Columbus
16.
Ave.
Yeah, it's probably 16, yeah.
So, while I'm not familiar with that off the top of my head, what I would say is any main structure, accessory structure relationship, if one of them is demolished, it depends how it can be used according to all applicable codes. That would determine the relationship. So if the main structure, let's say for the sake of this, that it also housed the main use, then if, assuming all applicable laws would allow the main use to move to the secondary or accessory structure, that could, for all intents and purposes, become a main dwelling, or excuse me, a main use.
Well, through the grapevine, I've been told that building has been used for drug deals, and that the neighbors would be very appreciative if that was also condemned and removed, but I have
think
no
I'm aware of
proof of
the
that.
property you're talking about now.
I think
Yeah,
the issue is the
so,
house in the front was condemned.
mhm.
But I don't know if the
Building
building in the
behind.
rear was also part of that condemnation.
No.
My,
It's
yeah,
not.
my understanding is that it was
It's
not.
not.
So then the city did what they were supposed to. They tore
Yeah.
the front down, the back remains. But it's
The
looking
the only, the positive that came out of it, really, obviously, is the neighbors are, of course, very happy, but everything can be seen now. There's no hiding, because you're looking right at that, for the traffic to come down the alley, and you can see cars now. You can see what's going on back there, so, and I know that Jared, they're doing a much greater patrol of the area to try to, deter. For some reason, it's like it's separate, and we're living up in there still, so it's,
Yeah, it's got my mother-in-law's suite over.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's a 1500 block, it could be 1530, it might be the exact
I
address.
think you're right.
Yeah. I know the address next door, but.
Anyway, that was
That was just a
question.
question
Early on and
from me,
before the
just
meeting started.
Yeah.
wondered if there was
Some
anything that,
loser.
I personally don't have anything additional to add besides
okay.
what has been stated.
Rampant.
First question is there items on the agenda for next month?
So far, no.
Okay, so we'll be hearing. If
Yes.
none, the motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor saying aye?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Great. Pass the packets down.
Thank you, Mr. Recycler.
Yes.